Welcome back to No Huddle, everyone, and welcome to my Week 8 NFL predictions and what is the final week of October football. We're getting into the summit of the NFL season, but it's still the first half, so we still got a lot more to enjoy. We got 13 games to cover, and after going 11-4, one of my better weeks this entire season, my season record is now 68-40. Hopefully I can bump it up. Can I maybe get into the 80 mark? I basically have to go perfect this week. Maybe we can do it, so let's just get started. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we got the Minnesota Vikings visiting the Los Angeles Chargers in SoFi Stadium. The Vikings are coming off a losing in a one-score game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Meanwhile, the Chargers were dominated on the offensive end by the Indianapolis Colts. Both of these teams have a lot of flaws, like they have many things that the other team can exploit a lot, but I'm going to take the Chargers purely off the fact that I do not trust Carson Wentz. The quarterbacks, both J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz, have both not played well under Kevin O'Connell, which seemed to be impossible to do that because he's just a quarterback whisperer. But even though the Chargers, they're just very injured, they have many flaws. Obviously, all their running backs are out. I'm not sure if Joel is going to play. Herbert just keeps getting under pressure because his offensive line is made of wet cardboard. I still think that they'll be able to make the plays because even an out-of-sync Eagles offense was able to do really, really well against that Minnesota defense. And I just don't trust the Minnesota offense to be able to execute down the stretch and match Herbert, who is still playing at a really, really good level. This is probably maybe one of the best years that he's had in his career. So I think that he'll be probably the man of the match in this game, and I think that the Chargers will come out with a victory. In terms of my key players for the Vikings, I think it is Jordan Mason. I think he had a relatively good game against Philly. If he can establish a run game, if he can be kind of like a bell cow back, then maybe it can alleviate some pressure off of Carson Wentz, and we won't have to see some of those bad tendencies. And then Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison will have better opportunities. And for the Chargers, it is that really bad offensive line because if they can protect him, just like Jalen Hurts was protected a lot, then Justin Herbert is going to be able to feast just like Jalen Hurts did. I think that's going to happen a couple of times, and it will lead the Chargers to a victory. And now we got no international game this week, so we're moving on straight to Sunday afternoon. We got the Dolphins visiting the Atlanta Falcons. The Dolphins almost laid an egg, losing in a blowout to the Cleveland Browns. Meanwhile, the Falcons fell on Sunday Night Football to the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to keep it short. The Falcons are going to win this game, in my opinion. The Dolphins, they're just going to be on cruise control of just sucking up until Mike McDaniel gets fired. I don't know if Tua or Quinn Ewers is going to start, but it's basically two cheeks from the same butt. Both of them are terrible quarterbacks. Both of them are probably going to turn the ball over. No one's going to make explosive plays. I don't even know if Darren Waller is going to play. And the only offensive hope is obviously Achane. If he can be kind of like a bell cow back or just have some explosive plays, then maybe the Dolphins can score some points. But the Falcons, they actually do have those explosive options to score those points with Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I think they're going to have a bounce back victory. And my key players, I think it's a battle of the two running backs. If Achane can take it 20 times and have 120 yards and a couple scores, or if Bijan can just have his classic games of 20 carries for 100 and something yards and keep the time of possession, then the Dolphins are just not going to be able to do anything. And whoever running back is better means that their quarterback is probably going to play better because they're going to be under less pressure to throw the ball and make key plays. I think the Falcons are going to do that, and I think that Mike McDaniel is finally going to get fired after this game. Now we got the Bears playing against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. The last time we saw the Bears, we saw them defeat the Saints in a very confusing game. Meanwhile, the Ravens were on a bye, but the last time we saw them, they had a dud with me in attendance against the Los Angeles Rams. Up until now, at the time of this recording, I'm not sure if Lamar Jackson is going to play. I think he's still absent from practice, so I'm going to make this prediction under the assumption that Lamar Jackson is not going to play and that Tyler Huntley / Cooper Rush is going to start. And with that being said, I'm going to take the Chicago Bears just because that Chicago defense is just not the Baltimore defense is just not very good. They were able to do a relatively decent job on the Rams, but even still, the Rams were still able to score, and they had some opportunities, but if the Rams didn't miss a field goal and then have some other self-inflicted errors, they would have hung a lot more points. I think that Caleb Williams is due for a game. Him and Rome Odunze, I think, are going to connect against that very sloppy Ravens secondary. And I just think that the Bears are going to have a better offensive game. DeAndre Swift has been playing really well in the past 2 weeks, so I think he'll come out once again and be very productive. And I just don't trust the Ravens offense. Honestly, even if Lamar plays, I have a lot of doubts whether they can win this game or not. just because like the defense is just so bad. And I think Ben Johnson is going to be able to go deep into his playbook against that defense and just kind of do whatever he wants. But the key players, I think it is Caleb Williams, because if he does make those mistakes that he did against the Saints, where I believe he threw an interception, wasn't as explosive as you want him to be, I think that the Ravens can definitely take advantage because, I mean, the Rams, they didn't really turn the ball over that much. They weren't like the sloppiest team in the world, and they still only scored 17. So maybe if they can force Caleb Williams into making some mistakes, then maybe they can come out with a victory. And for the Ravens, as always, with Lamar Jackson maybe being out, it's Derrick Henry once again. He was able to carry the ball really, really well against the Rams. If he can replicate that again and alleviate even more pressure off of Tyler Huntley or Cooper Rush, and they won't have to make a bunch of throws, maybe they can win. But I think that the Ravens, their season is going to take a tumble once again. And now we got the New York Jets playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The last time we saw them, the Jets, they crumbled in New Jersey against the Carolina Panthers by a score of 13-6. Yes, you heard that correctly. Meanwhile, the Bengals, they prevailed in the Icy Hot Bowl by a score of 33-31 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Bengals aren't really considered to be a good team, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually think they're going to win very convincingly, just because the Jets, like, they're just kind of a joke of a franchise. Really, nothing is going well for them. Even their defense, they did force Carolina and Denver to 13 points, but even still, like, I think they allowed Buffalo to score 31 on them. They allowed the Steelers to get 34 on them. And I think that the Bengals, now with Joe Flacco getting the hang of things, I think he's going to be able to cook that defense with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Maybe not have the same stat line that he did against Pittsburgh, but I think he's going to be very productive. And whoever starts for the Jets, I think it's going to be Tyrod Taylor. He's not going to do anything because the Jets offense, without Garrett Wilson and lackluster quarterback play with no real play calling and a mid-coach, they're just not going to do anything. I think it's going to be a blowout. Will Aaron Glenn get fired? I don't think he should, but I think he might be on the hot seat, especially because he's still 0-8, and even the defense, which is supposed to be his expertise, is not playing really well. But the key players, I think it is Tyrod Taylor for the Jets, because if he can play like he did against Tampa Bay, where he almost pulled out a win against them and like was playing some complimentary football, I guess, then maybe the Jets are going to have a chance, because maybe the Bengals show that inconsistency and maybe they're not the same as they were against Pittsburgh. And for the Bengals, it is Jamar Chase, because if he can be that reliable target, Joe Flacco threw the ball to him 23 times last week. So if he gives him the same amount of targets and he catches the same amount of passes or even more, then I think the Bengals offense is going to be just fine. I think that's going to happen, and I think they'll win the game pretty comfortably. And now we got the Panthers playing against the Buffalo Bills in one of the more interesting matchups of the week. The last time we saw the Panthers, they prevailed against the Jets, like I said before. And the last time we saw the Bills, they just had a bye, but we saw them lose on Monday night to the Atlanta Falcons. Like I said, this is a very interesting game because on one hand, I kind of want to go with the upset just because of how weird this season has been. I wouldn't be surprised if the Carolina Panthers come out and win this game, but I'm going to take Buffalo just because I don't see them dropping 3 games in a row. It's just similar to how Philly responded after losing 2 in a row. I think Buffalo's going to do the same thing. What they have to do is just not play incredibly sloppy. Like, I think if James Cook is in a flow, then they have to use him. Just not like they have to give him all the carries that he can have. Josh Allen needs to not turn the ball over. The Bills need to stop taking unnecessary penalties. And I think they'll be able to win just because the Panthers offense hasn't been like all that great. Obviously, Rico Dowdle's going to be a key factor. But Andy Dalton's going to start, and I don't think I think Andy Dalton is worse, obviously, than Drake May and Michael Penix. I don't think he'll be able to make like the key throws. The Panthers, I don't think, have a receiver at the level of Stephon Diggs or Drake London who'll be able to gash that secondary. And talking about players, I think the key player for the Panthers, it is Rico Dowdle, just because the same way that Bijan and Derrick Henry completely eviscerated that defense, Rico Dowdle's probably going to have to do the same thing. He's going to have another like 200-yard game, control the time possession, keep Josh Allen on the bench, who is my key player for the Bills. If he doesn't turn the ball over, plays like the MVP Josh Allen from last year and from like week 1 of last year, and they actually use James Cook and the receivers step up, then the Bills are actually going to look like the Super Bowl contenders that we know that they can be. I think that's going to happen, but if the Carolina Panthers pull off the upset, I wouldn't be the most surprised, and the Bills, they would have to answer some real questions because they would be in a lot of trouble. But for now, I think Buffalo's going to win. And now we got the 49ers going into Houston to play the Texans. We saw the 49ers prevail against the Falcons on Sunday night. Meanwhile, on Monday night, really late night, the Texans fell to the Seahawks by 8. I'm going to be really straightforward. I think the 49ers are going to win. Even being very injured on the defensive side, we saw that they can bottle up one of the better offenses, or at least one of the more high potential offenses in the league in Atlanta. Like, they were able to completely bottle up Bijan and Tyler Algier, and Drake London didn't really have the most productive game, neither did Kyle Pitts. And I would argue that the Falcons offense is significantly better than the Houston offense, who, even though they did well against Tennessee and Baltimore, the Texans offense has still been extremely static this entire season. CJ Stroud continues his regression. The receivers aren't really the same. The running isn't good. We all know that the offensive line sucks. And the 49ers, their front seven didn't do a terrible job, so I think they'll be able to do a good job against a terrible Texans offensive line. And in terms of the offense, I think the Texans defense is going to be really, really good. I think they'll definitely try and take Christian McCaffrey away, / those receiver options like George Kittle and Kendrick Bourne. But Mac Jones has been playing some nice football, and I think last week showed that he doesn't need to play perfect for the 49ers to win. I think if CMC just takes the ball, if he's able to run it well, maybe catch some passes out of the backfield, I think the 49ers are going to be able to pull off enough points just because the Texans offense is so static that the 49ers can score 20 points and it'll probably be enough to win. But the key players, I think the Texans defense is what's going to win them the game, just because CJ Stroud, I don't really know what's going on with him. I don't think he's in that elite tier anymore. I think the vision of him being one of the better quarterbacks in the league is kind of gone with this supporting cast currently. But if the defense can step up, force Mac Jones to a couple turnovers, bottle up CMC, force him into playing as a runner, if they can force him into not being very efficient and maybe limit his targets on the receiving end, then I think they'll have a better job of winning. But if Christian McCaffrey pops out, looks like the 2019 or the 2023 version of him, then the 49ers will easily win, and I think that's what's going to happen. Now we got the Patriots going up against the Cleveland Browns. The Patriots decimated the Titans 31-13. Meanwhile, the Browns, they also decimated Dolphins 31-6. Even though the Browns are coming off a really good win, I still think that the Patriots are going to win this one easily. They're just a better team. They're riding high. I believe they're on a 3-game winning streak. I think it's going to go up to 4. I think there will be now 6-2, still commanding the AFC East. Drake May is playing like an MVP caliber quarterback, and I think for this game, one, just avoid the trap. Just don't let this game be a trap, because with the Bills playing the Panthers, that can maybe be a loss. I think the Patriots, if they win, then they'll have a really big advantage point, just because the rest of their schedule is so easy. So they just need to not fall for the trap, take advantage of these easy games. And the key players for them, it's not really about who's going to be key for them, because I think Drake May just needs to be Drake May for them to win. But I think if Trayvon Henderson plays well and the Patriots unlock that new level of a reliable running game, then I think they'll truly become one of the bigger threats of the AFC, because I think if a defense somehow neutralizes Drake May, then I think the Patriots offense is going to be very flawed. So if they can unlock some sort of running game, I think they'll look a lot more threatening. And for the Browns, it is their defense, because if they can force the Patriots to look like the Packers of week 3, or the Dolphins of last week, or the Bengals of week 1, we know that the Browns can make every offense look sloppy. And if they can do the same thing, maybe force Drake May into missing some throws, maybe force a turnover out of him, then maybe Quidshot Jug can take advantage of it and win the game. I don't think that's going to happen, though, and I think Cleveland's winning streak is going to end at 1. And now we got an NFC East matchup. We got the Giants going into Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Last time we saw the Giants, they collapsed in an epic fashion against the Broncos. Meanwhile, Philly took care of business and got a bounce-back win against Minnesota. We also saw these two teams face off on Thursday night around 2 weeks ago, with the Giants prevailing when they absolutely demolished the Eagles. Will that result repeat itself? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I will not be shamed this time. Philadelphia is going to win this game. I don't see them getting swept by the Giants, and I just think that Philly is going to be pissed off. I think they're mad that they lost to the Giants on Thursday night, and I think that the Giants are going to be a little morally dead, at least in morale, just because they're coming off that big choke. They had a chance to maybe compete, maybe get back into the playoff race a little bit, but with that loss, I think they'll be very demoralized, and Philly's riding high after a bounce-back win. I think that their offense is finally going to click a little bit. I think the receiving game is going to look a lot better. I hope Saquon is able to look a lot better. And I think that the defense being more healthy, I think Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell will actually be available for the whole game. So I don't think that the Giants are going to run and pass all over them just like they did 2 weeks ago. But the key players, I think it is still Jackson Dart, because against Denver, Jackson Dart, it was what ruined them at the end with him making that boneheaded interception. And I mean, he was getting sacked and he was missing throws up until the refs bailing him out on the Giants' final drive last week. But if he can keep the ball safe, if he can make some good throws and have some good runs, just like he did 2 weeks ago, then I think the Giants will have a better chance of winning if they can keep that Philly offense off the field. And speaking of the Philly offense, I think Saquon has to look like he did last year. Like, I think Saquon is due for a good game. He had a decent game against the Giants 2 weeks ago, but like he hasn't looked like the Saquon of last week, and that's really concerning for Philadelphia, because I think if Saquon is able to play like he did last year, where he can carry the ball like 20 times and run for over 100 yards, then I think that's going to unlock the entire potential of the Philly offense, and they'll be able to hang like 35 just like they did last year. I think that can maybe happen, and if that does, then Philly's going to cruise and get a redemption NFC East win. And now we got an NFC South matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. The Buccaneers, they lost on Monday night to Detroit. Meanwhile, the Saints, they got dominated by the Chicago Bears. Keeping this short, I think Tampa Bay gets the bounce back win. I think they'll also be mad, similar to Philadelphia, similar to like Buffalo, where I think they'll want to redeem their past loss. I think even with Mike Evans out, I think Bucky Irving's still going to miss this game. I think with Emeka back, with the playmakers, what's his name, Tez Johnson still being there, I think Baker Mayfield is going to look a lot better. He had some really bad throws on Detroit, like they were making him very uncomfortable. I think this Saints defense is not really equipped to doing that, so I think that Baker Mayfield is going to look a lot better, kind of resume that MVP level that he had in the first 6 games. And I just don't really trust the Saints. I think they'll maybe keep the game competitive because they always seem to do that. Like they always give the teams a scare. Like maybe Chris Olave can get a score or two. But I think, considering the Buccaneers defense was able to force Jared Goff into errors and turning the ball over from him, then I think they'll be able to force some errors on Spencer Rattler as well. In terms of the key players, like I said before, it is Baker Mayfield for the Buccaneers, because he needs to prove to me that last week was not a fluke. He needs to prove that like those missed throws, like that was just an aberration. Like that, the accuracy and the deep throws and the moxie and everything about Baker Mayfield that we saw in the first 6 weeks, he needs to prove to me that that is the Baker Mayfield that we're going to see this season. And for the Saints, I think it is Chris Olave. If he can get a couple of scores in, make Spencer Rattler's life easier, then I think they'll maybe have a better shot at winning. But I think Tampa Bay is going to come out of this one with a bounce back victory. And now we got an AFC South matchup. We got a lot of divisional games this week. We got the Titans going into Indianapolis to play the Colts. The last time we saw the Titans, they got decimated by the Patriots 31-13. Meanwhile, the Colts absolutely demolished the Chargers 38-24 in an offensive showcase. We also saw these two teams meet like in week 4, and the Colts prevailed in a very comfortable victory in Tennessee. I think this, compared to the Giants-Eagles, I think this division matchup is going to be a sweep. I think Indianapolis is going to take care of them relatively easily. I don't see this game being very close. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to continue his MVP campaign. I think Daniel Jones is going to have a good game. I think Cam Ward, he's going to keep having those really bad turnovers, or at least turnover singular. And I just don't see Tennessee winning this game, just because the Colts offense is way too productive to be able to be halted by a really bad Tennessee defense. The key players, it is Cam Ward, not in the sense of like us needing to see him like play like Superman and winning the game. Just show us that you're not going to turn the ball over on literally every single like game, because that is really concerning. Even though I don't think it's all Cam Ward's fault, the fact that he's lost already 5 fumbles this season is very alarming. So just a cause for concern there. If he can maybe at least keep the game clean, even if you lose, then that'll be a better sign. And for the Colts, it's obviously Jonathan Taylor. He's the engine for that offense, making Daniel Jones' life easier, not making him throw 40 times a game and making him win you the game. If he can be the controller, then the Colts will easily win this game and improve to 7-1. That's just crazy to hear. Now we got the Cowboys playing against the Denver Broncos in what is kind of the game of the week. Not a lot of interesting matchups, but this is definitely one of them. The last time we saw the Cowboys, they destroyed the Commanders, putting up 44 in Jerry World. Meanwhile, like I mentioned before, the Broncos pulled off an emphatic comeback in Denver against the New York Giants. This is a really hard game to pick, just because we have a really elite offense versus a really elite defense. And even though I'd be going up against history here because I think the Broncos have a really, really good record against the Cowboys, just not mentioning the Super Bowl in the 70s, I'm going to take Dallas in this one. I don't trust the Denver offense. That's the thing. I think we saw the Cowboys offense do really, really well against defenses that can be very pesky. Like the Giants defense isn't all that bad. The Eagles defense isn't all that bad, and the Packers defense is pretty good. And we saw that the Cowboys were able to run circles around them, kind of, like to an extent. Like they were able to get off their plays. Dak Prescott was playing like an MVP in basically every single matchup. CeeDee Lamb is just one of the best receivers in the league. George Pickens is having a breakout year or a career year. Javonte Williams has been one of the better running backs in this league. And compare that to the Broncos offense, where even though they played well in the fourth quarter, like Bo Nix is still very, very inconsistent. Like I don't think they have the explosive plays. Like even one of their touchdowns was kind of a fluke. I don't know how RJ Harvey's going to play. So I think that the Cowboys will be able to take advantage, take what the defense gives them. And I think it will be very hard fought. I think it can be a very close game. If the Broncos play well on offense, then it could very well be a shootout. But personally, I just trust Dak Prescott more than I trust Bo Nix. For the key players, I think it's a cornerback wide receiver matchup between CeeDee Lamb and Patrick Surtain, and also throw in George Pickens and Riley Moss, because similar to the Eagles matchup, I think if the receivers are able to get better at the corners and Dak Prescott can just throw to them whenever he wants and do whatever he wants, then the Cowboys are just going to roll all over them and probably drop 40 again. But if the corners are able to lock them down, similar to what they did to the Philly duo, then I think they can maybe give Bo Nix a bit of a lifeline, and maybe he can come back and win the game just like he did against Philly. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Dallas is going to get their second straight win, and the Broncos, I think their winning streak will be halted at last. And now we got Sunday Night Football between the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The last time we saw the Packers, they prevailed on a game-winning drive over the Arizona Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Steelers, they fell to a game-winning drive on Thursday night to the Cincinnati Bengals. Another kind of interesting matchup because both of these teams are very kind of weird to talk about. But I think the Packers are going to win this one. Their defense has been really good. I think it has a hard time generating turnovers, but I think the pressure that they can force with Micah Parsons and just the gravity that he has forcing the double teams, I think they're going to get to Aaron Rodgers multiple times. And then the offense, even though it's been kind of out of sync over the past couple weeks, I think with Josh Jacobs playing a lot better, Tucker Kraft just being like so incredible, and Romeo Doubs just being a very complimentary receiver, I think Jordan Love is going to play really well. I think we'll see the Jordan Love kind of that we saw against Dallas, just because that Steelers defense, it's very questionable. It has some good games, only against like the Browns and stuff like that, but then when they face good offenses, kind of like Cincinnati and even the Jets in week 1 and the Seahawks as well, like they look very, very beatable. And I just don't really trust Aaron Rodgers to be able to overcome the Packers defense thanks to that pressure. And I don't think at this day and age, I don't think he's going to be able to outgun Jordan Love. The key players, I think for the Packers, it is Romeo Doubs, because similar, we saw Jamar Chase completely burn them, so I'm not saying Romeo Doubs has to turn into Jamar Chase, but if he can be that reliable option, have over 100 yards or something like that, then they're going to completely gash them just like the Bengals did. And for the Steelers, I think it's their offensive line, because if they can neutralize Micah Parsons, similar to like what the Cowboys did, and just avoid the pressure and give Rodgers time, just like he had against the Bengals, then maybe he can cook that Packers defense against their weak secondary. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Packers are going to win and improve to 4-1-1, and the Steelers, they better hope their division opponents lose, because this dropping 2 games in a row would not be ideal. And ending the week, we got Monday Night Football with the Commanders visiting Kansas City to play the Chiefs. We saw the Commanders get absolutely obliterated in Jerry World to the Cowboys last week. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, they completely obliterated the Raiders in a shutout 31-0 victory. If Jaden Daniels was healthy, which I don't think he is, I think Marcus Mariota is set to start. I would maybe pick the Commanders, but I think the Chiefs are going to win this one very handedly. Their offense just looks like so explosive now with the return of Rashee Rice, still having Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce looks a lot better than he did last year. The running game is picking up. Mahomes is back to his former self. Like, there's just nothing like to poke at with this Chiefs offense. Like, they just look back to their form in which they're going to probably drop 30. Like, they had more first downs than the Raiders had plays last week. Like, that's just insane. Both on the Raiders being trash part and just the Chiefs being so good. And with the Commanders not having Jaden Daniels, like, no explosive plays are probably going to come unless Debo turns back into 2021 form and just has some explosive plays out of the backfield or takes a pass 50 yards to the house. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Spags is going to have a really good game plan to take away anything that Marcus Mariota wants to do. And the Chiefs offense against a really, really old and slow Washington defense, they're going to use those really, really fast players like Pacheco, like Worthy, like Rashee Rice, and just absolutely kill them. But the key players, I think, for the Commanders, it's Bill Krosky-Merritt, because similar to how I think ETN was able to have a better time in the second half of the Jacksonville game, and I think that's what sparked the comeback for Jacksonville against KC. So if he can have a really good game and keep Mahomes off the floor, make Marcus Mariota's life a lot easier, then I think they'll have a better shot at winning. I just don't really know what's like the likelihood of that to happen, just because Spags is so good at taking other teams' biggest strength and turning it into a weakness. And for the Chiefs, I think it is the receiving core with Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy. Because, again, if they can expose that really, really old defense, that really, really old linebacking core of Von Miller and Bobby Wagner, and just stretch the field and completely burn them on the sidelines or over the middle, then the Chiefs are probably going to walk to like 35 points really easy. Mahomes might be back on the MVP candidate list, and I think the Chiefs are going to get another win and improve to 5-3, and that will end off Week 8. And that is it for my predictions. I hope I can finally go back to having some really good weeks. I had a really bad stretch from like Week 3 all the way to Week 6, but we bounced back with an 11-4 record. Hopefully we can keep up that momentum. But if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and please like the video, as any support is truly appreciated. And I'll see you guys next week at the end of Week 8.